Okatachi Afria had spent over a decade in the United States, but his heart never left Ghana. He worked tirelessly, ensuring that his family, both extended and nuclear, never lacked anything. His sacrifices were endless. He sent money for school fees, medical bills, and family upkeep. But his greatest investment was in his brother, Asante. "Asante, I trust you," Okatachi had once said over a phone call. "I'm sending you money. Build me a house so when I return, I have a place to stay. Brother, you don't even have to ask. I would never betray you," Asante had assured him time after time. Okatachi sent money not just for the house, but also to help Asante establish himself. He even ensured their mother lived comfortably. "Take care of Ma," he had said. "Make sure she never lacks anything." And Asante had agreed. But loyalty is a fragile thing when tested by greed. One evening, after years of hard work, Okatachi finally returned home. He stood at the gate of the house he had sacrificed so much to build. His heart swelled with emotions, pride, nostalgia, longing. He knocked. A few minutes passed before the door creaked open. Asante stood there, his eyes wide with shock. "Okatachi," he exclaimed, forcing a smile. "You didn't tell me you were coming." "I wanted to surprise you," Okatachi chuckled. "It's good to be home." "Ah, yes." Come in," Asante said hesitantly. "You must be tired from your journey. Rest for the night." But something felt off. The warmth Okatachi expected was absent. And in the shadows of the house, a secret was breathing. As Okatachi stepped inside, the air shifted. A woman's voice laughed from upstairs, one he didn't recognize. He stopped in the hallway. His suitcase still clutched tightly. "Who's here?" he asked. Asante's smile froze. "Oh, just family." But Okatachi had been away long enough to know when something was wrong. The house he paid for, the walls he financed brick by brick, now echoed with unfamiliar footsteps and strange laughter. And none of it felt like home. Okatachi placed his dusty suitcase beside the mahogany table in the hallway, though even the table seemed unfamiliar, polished but cold, sterile, almost as if it were part of a hotel lobby. The walls, once promised to be painted in warm earth tones, were now a dull grey. The lighting was too bright, clinical. And the silence that followed Asante's greeting was far too loud. A sudden, high-pitched laugh drifted down from upstairs. It didn't sound like his mother. It didn't sound like anyone he remembered. It was youthful, flirtatious, and oddly out of place in what was supposed to be his family home. Okatachi turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. "Who's that?" Asante shifted uncomfortably. "Ah, that's Adwoa. Kweku's wife. You remember Kweku, right? Cousin Kweku." Okatachi blinked. "Kweku? The cousin who had once borrowed money from him and disappeared into thin air? That Kweku? No, I don't remember him having a wife." "And what's she doing here?" Asante chuckled nervously and gestured vaguely toward the staircase. "She's just staying for a while. Long story. But relax, bro. You just arrived. We'll talk everything through in the morning." But Okatachi's ears were trained. Years in the corporate world in the US had sharpened his instincts. That laugh upstairs? That wasn't the laugh of someone just visiting. That was a laugh that belonged to someone comfortable, someone at home. His suspicions deepened when a second figure emerged at the top of the stairs. A tall woman, perhaps in her late 20s, dressed in a silk robe, her hair wrapped in a designer scarf. She didn't act startled by the sight of a stranger in the house. Instead, she leaned against the banister and looked down at Okatachi with calm confidence, eyes scanning him like an appraiser evaluates a relic. "Ah. You must be the famous brother," she said coolly, her accent not Ghanaian, American, perhaps, or South African. It was hard to place. "I'm Adwoa," she continued. "I've heard stories." "Stories?" Okatachi felt the word stab him in the gut. What stories? What had Asante told her? That he was just some deported has-been now returning to beg for space? He turned to Asante. I thought this house was mine. Asante raised both hands. It's your house. Of course. I was only, managing things while you were away. But people needed a place to stay. Kweku hit a rough patch, and he trailed off when he saw Okatachi's glare. I sent enough money to build a home for kings, Okatachi said slowly, his voice low and deliberate. Yet I come home, and my room is occupied. The living room has strangers. And my mother, where is she? Oh, Ma's fine, Ma's fine. Asante said quickly. She moved into a smaller place. Said she preferred a quieter area. Without another word, Okatachi walked past him, heading toward what was supposed to be his bedroom. The moment his hand touched the doorknob, Adwoa cleared her throat. That's our room now. The audacity. Okatachi turned around slowly. Whose room? Adwoa didn't blink. Mine and Asante's. We moved in last year. You've been gone for over a decade, remember? We had to make changes. A decade? Like that gave them the right to erase him? He turned back to Asante. So where do I sleep? Asante looked away, scratching the back of his head. There's the guest quarters in the back. Just for tonight. Tomorrow, we can figure everything out. Everything felt surreal. The air was thick. The walls, despite being freshly painted, seemed to close in. This was what he returned to? Okatachi bit his lip, nodded once, and walked outside toward the back. The so-called guest quarters were nothing more than a room with a dusty fan, peeling walls, and an old mattress. He didn't mind luxury. He didn't return expecting gold. But what he felt now wasn't about the bed or the walls. It was rejection. Erasure. As if he'd been written out of a story he spent years funding. He sat down heavily on the bed and pulled his bag close, unzipping it. Inside, carefully folded, were all the documents he had left, proof of transfers, voice messages, and photos of construction blueprints he had once been sent. He looked through them, his hands trembling. He had given them everything. And now, he had nothing. Then, he heard the muffled sound of footsteps outside the guest room door. He stood and quietly opened it a crack. In the distance, near the side of the house, Adwoa stood beneath the porch light, whispering harshly on her phone. His back. No, I don't think he suspects yet. But if he finds the documents... Okatachi's heart slammed in his chest. Who was she talking to? What documents? He stepped back into the room and slowly closed the door, locking it. His mind raced. His instinct screamed. Something was very, very wrong. This wasn't just neglect. This was a conspiracy. Okatachi did not sleep that night. Every creak in the ceiling, every whisper of the wind outside the metal window slat seemed to echo with betrayal. The fan spun above him with a limp wheeze, barely moving the thick heat around the small guest room. His suitcase lay open beside the bed, the documents still spread across it like scattered memories, receipts of trust, photos of promises made and forgotten. That one line haunted him. If he finds the documents... Documents? What more could there be? He had his receipts, yes, but what could they be hiding? Why was Adwoa whispering into the phone about him like he was an enemy infiltrator and not the very reason this house even existed? Morning came slowly. The rooster crowed, but it wasn't the same proud cockle he remembered from his childhood. It sounded tired, too, like even the animals in this house knew something was wrong. He stepped outside, stretching, trying to appear calm. Adwoa and Asante were seated on the patio, dressed like a couple straight out of a lifestyle magazine. She wore a matching silk wrapper, sipping tea from a fine porcelain cup. He scrolled on his phone like a man without a single care in the world. Morning, Okatachi said flatly. Asante looked up, forced a smile. Morning, bro. You sleep well. Like a rock dropped in a dry well. Asante laughed nervously, and Adwoa just sipped her tea without comment. Where's Ma? Okatachi asked suddenly. Asante paused. She's fine. I told you. She's staying with Auntie Joyce in Medina. You know how she loves that place. I'd like to see her today. Asante hesitated, then nodded. Sure. I'll call and arrange. Okatachi sat beside them, but the tension clung to the air like humidity before a storm. He picked up his tea, but something about the taste was off. Bitter. His stomach turned, and he put the cup down quickly. Then, as if the universe timed it perfectly, the gate swung open. A tall man in construction gear walked in, hard hat, reflective vest, dust still clinging to his boots. Boss Asante, he called cheerfully. The blocks arrived late, but we've started on the extension. Okatachi turned sharply. Extension? The man paused. Ah. Sorry, sir, I didn't mean. Asante jumped up. Kweku. What are you doing here this early? Ah, I wanted to update you on the project. You said you'd pass by. I said I'll come later. Asante barked, shooting the man a glare. But it was too late. Okatachi stood slowly. What project? Adwoa's smile vanished. Asante looked trapped. Kweku. Okatachi turned to the worker. What extension? Kweku scratched his head nervously. The new story. For the upper floor. Boss Asante said we're building rental flats. For bedrooms per unit. You know, Airbnb and all that. A cold silence fell. Okatachi's heart pounded. Rental flats. On my property. He turned to Asante. You're building rentals without telling me. Asante stepped forward, trying to recover. Look, bro. You've been gone for a long time. Things change. The city is growing. We had to adapt. I thought you'd be proud. Proud. Okatachi snapped. Proud that I come home to find tenants I never approved? A wife I never met? A house I can't sleep in? And now you're expanding my building for your profits. It's still your house, bro. Asante protested. We're family. Then why does it feel like I'm the intruder? Adwoa stood now, folding her arms. Listen, Mr. Okatachi. You lived abroad for over a decade. You were deported. People talk. Nobody even knew if you'd come back. We did what we had to do to survive. Survive? Okatachi barked a bitter laugh. Survive with designer rappers and building projects? What did you think I was doing in America, dancing on Broadway? I worked 15-hour shifts. I mopped floors. I washed corpses in hospitals during COVID. I bled for this house. Kweku, awkward and embarrassed, quietly excused himself and disappeared down the road. But Okatachi wasn't done. He marched back into the house, straight to the wall near the staircase. The last time Asante had sent him photos, there had been a plaque installed there with his name etched on it. This house was built by Okatachi Afria, may his sacrifice be remembered. Now, the space where the plaque had once been was bare. Repainted. Covered up. He reached out and scratched at the paint with his fingernail. The layers came off easily. Beneath the grey, there it was, his name. Faint but visible. They had painted over his legacy. Okatachi turned slowly, his hands shaking with rage. I want to see the land documents. Today. Adwoa flinched. What documents? Don't play dumb. The ones that say who owns this property. I want to see them now. Asante looked like a man cornered. Bro, relax. It's not that simple. You know the land commission delays. I kept every transfer. Every bank slip. I want the title deeds. Don't make me go to the commission myself. And at that moment, Okatachi saw it. The panic in Asante's eyes. The realization struck like lightning, they had changed the papers. Somewhere in the system, they had taken his sacrifice and signed it away. The sun was now high in the sky, casting long shadows across the compound. Okatachi stood frozen in the corridor, staring at the wall where his name used to be, where it had been buried beneath coats of dull grey paint. His name. His sacrifice. His story. Erased. Adwoa had disappeared into the kitchen, slamming cupboard doors and muttering under her breath. Asante stood by the doorway, sweating, though the morning breeze had started to roll in. "You think I won't find out?" Okatachi asked quietly, turning to face his brother. Asante forced a grin. "Find out what, bro? This is your house. Then show me the documents. I want to see the land papers. The building permits. Everything. Now." "Jail, those things are with the lawyer. He traveled." "I'll wait. You know Ghana, bro. Everything takes time." "I have time." There was silence. It was the first time in years Asante realized that the brother who had left with nothing but dreams and ambition had returned with something more dangerous, a sense of truth and nothing to lose. Later that day, Okatachi didn't rest. He walked out of the house and made his way to town. His feet hit the pavement with purpose. He hailed a taxi and gave the driver instructions. "Ghana Lands Commission, Airport City," he said. "You sure?" the driver asked, glancing at him in the rear view. "That place no day easy, oh. People queue from morning till evening. I'm not leaving until I get what I want." The taxi took off. Okatachi's mind raced. Every memory of money sent, voice notes from Asante promising loyalty, emails with receipts, all of it bubbled up in his chest. He had backed his brother like an investor backing a dreamer. But now, it seemed the dreamer had built a kingdom and planned to sit on the throne alone. At the Lands Commission office, it was chaos, as expected. Dozens of people stood in line, some shouting over missing files, others begging officers for updates. There were agents, touts, middlemen swarming like flies, whispering offers of expedited processing and shortcuts. But Okatachi ignored them all. He approached the front desk. "Good morning, sir. I'm here to verify the ownership of a property. Residential. Built under my name." The clerk didn't even look up. "What's the block number and parcel code?" "I don't know that," Okatachi admitted. "But I have receipts. Transfers. Floor plans. It's in Cantonments, Accra. Registered under Afria Okatachi." The woman sighed. "Go to the records window. Request a property search. Fill out a form. Then wait." "How long?" 3 to 5 weeks. He blinked. 3 to 5 what? "We have backlog, sir." But Okatachi wasn't one to sit back anymore. He asked around, quietly, strategically, and a younger officer named Timothy pulled him aside later that afternoon. "I day like your spirit, boss," Timothy whispered. "You know be like those we come shout and bribe. I go help you small." Timothy led him through a back corridor, unlocked a dusty file cabinet and pulled out a worn leather folder. "What's the address?" he asked. Okatachi recited it slowly. Timothy scanned the folder. What? Your name no day the title, boss." Okatachi felt his stomach drop. "Check again." Timothy flipped the pages. "It's registered under Afria Asante and Adwoa Mensima Afria. Joint ownership." Okatachi stared at the file. "But I sent every dollar. Every Sadie. My name was there, this was built with my blood." Timothy nodded slowly. "Maybe you give him power of attorney? Like say you day abroad, then he do everything on your behalf." "Yes," Okatachi replied, remembering. "He said it would be faster. Safer." "Well, boss, if he used that to transfer ownership, and he do everything clean, the house legally be his." "But that's fraud." Timothy shrugged. "Maybe morally. But legally, depends how he do 'em." Okatachi stepped back. Everything blurred. The air in the room suddenly felt thin. Back at the house. That evening, Okatachi returned, quietly, calmly, like a man defeated. But inside, a storm raged. Adwoa was cooking jollof. Asante watched football on the couch. "You didn't tell me," Okatachi said, voice low. Asante looked up. "Tell you what? That the land title bears your name." The room froze. Adwoa dropped a spoon. "What were you planning to do, Asante? Wait until I died? Until I begged for scraps in my own home? Or were you going to evict me too?" "Bro, calm down. It's not like that." "Then how is it?" Asante stood. "You were abroad. You gave me power of attorney. I handled everything. You were struggling over there. What if you didn't come back? I had to protect the investment." "And why investment? You were the custodian, not the owner." "Ownership is who controls the papers," Asante said coldly now. "And right now, the papers are mine." Adwoa stepped beside her husband, arms crossed. "So what now?" she asked. "You'll take us to court? With what money? You've been deported. You have nothing." Okatachi's fists clenched. But instead of shouting, he smiled. It was a slow, cold smile. "Don't worry," he said. "I may have come back with nothing, but now, I have something far more dangerous than money." "And what's that?" Asante asked. "Time. And the truth." And with that, Okatachi turned, walked into his room, and shut the door. Evening descended on the city of Accra, shrouding the neighborhood in shadows and flickering lights. The aroma of frying plantain mixed with the hum of passing trotros and the occasional barking of roadside dogs. It was a typical Ghanaian evening, alive with sounds, smells, and the buzz of human activity. But in Okatachi's compound, the atmosphere was thick, like a storm waiting to burst. He sat on the edge of the worn guest bed in his supposed house, his elbows on his knees, face buried in his palms. The ceiling fan squeaked as it turned, offering little comfort. He could hear Asante's laughter from the living room, too loud, too forced, along with the blaring sound of a football commentator on the TV. Okatachi's mind replayed Timothy's words from the Lands Commission, "Your name no day the title, boss." He had trusted the wrong person. Again. But now, his eyes were open. And his next move wouldn't be emotional, it would be strategic. Unseen eyes. A few houses away, a figure sat on a rooftop, legs crossed, one hand holding binoculars. Dressed in an old, faded hoodie and ripped jeans, he looked like a street boy to the casual observer. But this man wasn't watching birds or planes, he was watching the Afria compound. He zoomed in through the window and saw Okatachi pacing. The man smiled. Finally, he muttered, "You're back." The man's name was Kwesi Blankson, once a childhood friend of both Okatachi and Asante. But life had tossed him into a different path. He'd left Ghana under shady circumstances, falsely accused of theft, blacklisted by family, and betrayed by the very people he once called brothers. Back then, only one person had defended him, Okatachi. And now, Kwesi had returned. Not as the friend they knew, but as the shadow they forgot. A knock at midnight. Later that night, as Okatachi lay awake, lost in thought, a knock came at his window, 3 soft taps, spaced apart. Knock. 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 He sat up, startled. For a second, he thought he was dreaming. But the knock came again. He slid the curtain and peeked through the glass. A dark silhouette stood by the corner, wearing a hoodie. "Who is that?" Okatachi whispered. The figure raised a hand. "Don't shout. It's me. Kwesi." Okatachi's heart jumped. He hadn't heard that name in over 10 years. He opened the window. "Kwesi? From Adabraka. From Class 3B. From the time you fought 5 boys because they stole my sneakers." Okatachi stared, stunned. "What are you doing here?" "I've been watching. I know everything," Kwesi said. "And I can help you. But you need to be ready. Because what you think Asante did is just the surface. Underground truths. They met at a nearby drinking spot an hour later, Blue Rooftop, a local hideout only known to taxi drivers, Okada riders, and people who dealt in grey business. Kwesi lit a cigarette, although he barely smoked. "I work with land agents now," he said. "Sometimes I track property disputes. Sometimes I help get justice outside the court system." "You've changed," Okatachi said. Kwesi nodded. "Life changed me. Like it changed you. But listen. Asante didn't just steal your house. He's laundering money through your land." Okatachi blinked. "What do you mean?" Kwesi pulled out his phone, showed pictures, plots of land, construction permits, a fake company under Asante's name, Afria Global Estates Limited. "You funded the original house," Kwesi continued. "But he's used your documents, your power of attorney, to register 6 more properties. All of them listed under shell companies. He flips the properties, sells them to fake buyers, then leases them to foreigners." Okatachi couldn't breathe. "So all these years? He used your name, your sacrifice, and your absence to build a real estate empire." Okatachi leaned back, his mind reeling. "And you know all this how?" Kwesi's eyes gleamed. "Because I built one of those houses. I worked on the site as a mason last year, under a fake name. And when I saw the documents, I recognized your signature. A secret partnership. What do you want from me?" Okatachi asked cautiously. Kwesi smiled. "Justice. But not the kind you go crying to the police for. Ghana no day work like that. I want us to shake the foundation under Asante's feet. Quietly. Systematically. You in?" Okatachi hesitated. He had been a man of law and trust all his life. But this wasn't America. This was home, where even loyalty could be faked and blood didn't always mean family. "I'm in," he said finally. "But we do it my way. I want to expose him. Publicly. Not just for me. For Ma. For every dollar I lost. Every night I spent hungry so they could eat." Kwesi raised his glass. "Then let's bury the truth deep enough that when it resurfaces, it shakes the whole city." Back at the house, Asante lay in bed next to Adwoa, scrolling through WhatsApp messages from one of his side businesses. His phone buzzed with a bank alert, 42000 transferred in. He grinned. "Life sweet," he muttered. Okatachi go soon tire. But outside their compound, 2 shadows watched from the darkness. One had come home as a deportee. The other had come back from the dead. Morning broke in the Afria compound, but there was no peace in the air. Birds chirped in confused patterns, and even the rooster sounded uncertain, as if warning of something strange on the horizon. Okatachi stood on the front porch with a broom, sweeping leaves off the tiled walkway, his walkway, though the ownership was now in question. He worked slowly, lost in thought, reliving every word from Kwesi the night before. Real estate fraud. Property laundering. Fake shell companies. He had come home looking for peace. Instead, he'd found a puzzle, and every piece pointed to betrayal. Just then, a delivery motorbike revved down the road and stopped in front of the gate. The young rider, wearing a red helmet and a black hoodie, held a thick brown envelope. "Are you Mr. Afria?" he asked. "I am," Okatachi replied warily. "Sign here," the rider said, handing over a digital pad. Okatachi signed, took the envelope, and watched the bike zoom off without a second word. No return address. No markings. Just his name written in bold black letters, Mr. Okatachi AFRA. The contents. He took it inside the guest room, shut the door behind him, and tore the flap open. Inside were 3 things. 1. A stack of printed bank statements from a local Ghanaian bank. 2. A USB flash drive with a red sticker on it. 3. A small handwritten note that read, "If you want answers, start with the balance sheet. Watch the files. Then come to where the first brick was laid." Okatachi's heart raced. The handwriting looked familiar, but not enough to identify the author. He turned his attention to the bank documents first. His eyes widened as he scanned line after line. Account name, Afria Global Estates Limited. Authorized signatory, Mr. Asante Afria. Recent transactions. 128,000 Ghanaian cedis, deposit from foreign wire. 96,500 Ghanaian cedis, withdrawal to cash. 215,000 Ghanaian cedis, transferred to Eagle Bridge Holdings. 19,000 Ghanaian cedis, payment for office rentals, Cantonments branch. He flipped to the second page. His jaw clenched when he saw his own forged signature attached to the first deposit authorization. Someone had mimicked his writing almost perfectly. "This is bigger than I thought," he whispered. He inserted the USB drive into his old laptop. A single folder opened on the screen, Project Seeker Duro. Inside were video recordings, secret ones. The first file opened with a timestamp, May 22, 2023, for 14 p.m. Asante sat at a conference table in a sleek office. He laughed with two foreign investors. "You don't worry about documentation," Asante said. "My brother's name carries weight. He lives abroad, clean record. All the land titles go through him first, and then we flip it under the company." "What if your brother finds out?" one investor asked. "He won't," Asante grinned. "Even if he returns, he'll return empty-handed. No one respects deportees here." Laughter erupted. Okatachi froze. His face turned white with rage, his fingers trembling. The betrayal wasn't just in theft, it was in disdain. The brother he fed, the brother he protected, had used his name to commit fraud and laughed about his fall from grace. He closed the laptop and sat still for a long moment. The quiet room now echoed like a courtroom before sentencing. Then he stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked at himself, really looked. "I may have been deported," he said quietly, "but I still have my mind. My name. And now I have proof." Meanwhile, in the main house, Asante was in high spirits. He had just finalized the paperwork to lease one of his properties to a Chinese businessman in Airport Hills. 150,000 Ghanaian cedis, paid in full. He called Adwoa to the dining table, uncorked a bottle of red wine, and raised a toast. To bigger things, he smiled. And to Okatachi being too stupid to know when he's outmatched. Adwoa clinked her glass but remained quiet. "Why so tense?" he asked. She sighed. "I saw someone outside last night. A man in a hoodie. He was watching the house. Probably some drunk neighbor." "No, it felt different," she said. "As if he knew us. As if he was waiting." Asante dismissed her concerns. "Nobody knows anything. The only person who could blow this wide open is 12 years too late." But just then, a knock echoed from the gate again. This time, it wasn't a delivery. It was Kwesi. "The confrontation begins." Asante answered the gate, expecting a neighbor or security man. When he saw Kwesi, his expression darkened. "You," he hissed. "I thought you vanished." Kwesi smirked. "I did. But cockroaches always survive the fire. What do you want?" Kwesi stepped in slowly. "I'm here on behalf of an old friend. And I suggest you sit down." "Because the storm you laughed at? It's already at your doorstep." Back in the guest room, Okatachi changed into jeans and a dark shirt. He picked up the black envelope, slipped the USB back inside, and whispered to himself. Where the first brick was laid. He knew exactly what that meant. The original site where his house had been built, before it was expanded, before it became the Afria family compound. It was the same land he had sent his first 20,000 Ghanaian cedis for. That land held secrets. And he was ready to dig. The city of Accra moved like a restless heart, horns blaring, trotro drivers shouting, radios blasting high-life tunes, and the humid air soaking every man, woman, and child. But amid the chaos, Okatachi Afria stood still in front of an empty, dusty lot in Dansoman, the place where his dreams were supposed to begin. 12 years ago, this was the first plot of land he purchased with sweat and sacrifice. The one he envisioned building his retirement house on. The one he paid for in full and wired every construction Sadie to Asante to oversee. Now, it was a fenced-off, weed-infested wasteland with an iron gate sealed with a padlock. There was no house. No trace. No plaque with the Afria name. He clenched his fists. Behind him, Kwesi adjusted the camera strapped across his shoulder. "You ready?" Kwesi asked, keeping his voice low. "Start rolling," Okatachi replied. The hidden foundation. With a small bolt cutter in hand, Okatachi sliced the rusty lock open. The gate squeaked as it opened. Dust clouds rose beneath their feet as they stepped inside. "Here," he said, pointing at a section toward the back corner. "This is where the foundation was poured first. I remember Asante sending pictures." Kwesi panned the camera across the barren lot. "There's nothing here, man." Okatachi knelt and began brushing the dirt with his hand. After a few minutes of scraping and clawing through the dry soil, his fingers hit concrete. He looked up at Kwesi. "I told you." He cleared more debris, revealing an old date stamp scratched into the cement. 2014 Shafria. Still kneeling, Okatachi's eyes filled with water. Not from sadness, but from confirmation. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't paranoid. This had been his. He had history here, evidence, proof that his brother had hidden it. "I built something here." He must have demolished it, or sold it, or... Kwesi crouched beside him. "Let's take a sample and get an independent surveyor. If this is what you say it is, it's the legal trigger we need." "But why bury it?" Okatachi asked aloud, more to the ghosts than the living. "Because the lie started here," Kwesi replied. "If Asante was ever going to cover his tracks, he had to make this place disappear." Flashback, 2016. 2 years after Okatachi wired the last construction payment, Asante stood with a man in a white kaftan, the surveyor general of the area. In his hand was a briefcase. "I need this lot removed from all satellite records," Asante whispered. "You realize this is illegal," the man said. "I'm not asking for permission. I'm offering 50,000 Ghanaian cedis for silence." The man paused. Money, in Ghana, often spoke louder than conscience. An hour later, all public land records linked to Okatachi's name were wiped. And the plot? Sold to an investor who never built, because Asante never told him it was already owned. Back to present. At the edge of the lot, a neighbor, an elderly woman with a faded wrapper tied around her chest, watched silently through the rusted bars of her window. Are you Okatachi?" she asked. He turned. "Yes, Ma. Do you know me? I remember when your containers came. Building materials. Big trucks. Blocks, iron rods, water tanks. But one day, the men just stopped working. They left everything and your brother said you changed your mind." "What did he do with the blocks?" he asked. "Some men came at night. Took them. Later I heard he used them to build a new compound in East Legon." Okatachi's heart beat like a war drum. East Legon. The estate he was staying in now. The pieces fell into place. "He built my house with my blocks, on my money, then claimed I never existed," Okatachi whispered. The hunger for truth. Kwesi uploaded the photos and foundation video to a secure cloud drive. "This is the first shot. But it won't be enough. If Asante has inside men in land commission and banks, we need something bigger, documents. Contracts. Maybe a disgruntled partner." "I think I know where to look," Okatachi said. "Where?" "My mother's room." Meanwhile, back at the house. Inside the Afria mansion, Asante was pacing. Adwoa sat nervously, watching him. "That bastard is up to something," Asante growled. "He's too quiet. What if he's just trying to get his life together?" Adwoa offered gently. "Don't be naive," he snapped. "He may have come back poor, but Okatachi isn't stupid. That man sees everything." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Kofi, we may need to move the documents tonight." A pause. No. All of it. Land titles, business registration forms, and the originals of the contracts. Burn the ones with his name. Leave no trace. Cliffhanger, the suitcase under Mama's bed. That evening, when Asante and Adwoa were out for dinner with a real estate client, Okatachi entered his mother's old room. It smelled of rose water and dust. He moved the bed aside and reached beneath it. There, wedged between two wooden beams, was a leather suitcase, the same one he used to send gifts to his mother from America. He pulled it out, heart pounding. The zip was stiff from age, but he pried it open slowly. Inside were dozens of envelopes, bank drafts, land transfer papers, and handwritten letters. His eyes locked onto one envelope marked, "Confidential, do not tell Asante." He opened it. Inside was a single page, yellowed with time. Dear Okatachi, your brother is not being honest with you. I am old, but I am not blind. I've seen men come at night, take your things, and forge papers. I am keeping these documents safe until you return. Love. Ma. Okatachi dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. She had known. His mother had known. Even in silence, she had tried to protect him. And now, he had the key to everything. The dim light of the evening filtered through the cracked window panes, casting long shadows across the dusty floor of the old room. Okatachi sat on the cold wooden floor, clutching the leather suitcase tightly in his lap. The worn edges of the case seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories, secrets that had waited years, maybe decades, to be revealed. He carefully pulled out a stack of yellowed letters, their edges brittle with age. Each envelope bore the familiar handwriting of his mother, neat, deliberate, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. The first letter he unfolded was dated 5 years before his forced exile from the United States. His fingers trembled as he read aloud softly. My dear son, the world you left behind is not what you think. Your brother Asante is no longer the man you believe him to be. I fear the greed has swallowed him whole. I have kept these papers hidden for you, for the day you might return. Love always, Ma. Okatachi's throat tightened. His mother's voice echoed in his heart, a fragile thread connecting the past and present. The letters speak. Each letter was a testament to his mother's quiet vigilance. She had witnessed Asante's slow descent into deception, the forged land documents, the mysterious nighttime visitors, the false promises to relatives and neighbors alike. One letter detailed how Asante had secretly mortgaged part of the family's farmland without telling anyone. Another revealed whispered conversations between Asante and local officials bribed to erase Okatachi's rightful claims. Okatachi's eyes darted to the letter that contained the most damning accusation, an account of a meeting where Asante agreed to sell the land to a shadowy businessman, promising to keep Okatachi out of the deal forever. The letters were more than evidence, they were a roadmap to reclaiming what was stolen. The burden of truth. But with the revelation came a heavier burden. The more Okatachi read, the more the house seemed to close in on him. The quiet room smelled of stale air and loss. Was it really worth fighting this battle alone? Could his family, who had welcomed him with polite smiles and hidden agendas, be trusted? Kweezi's earlier words came back sharply, loyalty is a fragile thing when tested by greed. Okatachi took a deep breath and looked up at the peeling ceiling. He knew his mother had been right. The real war was just beginning. The first move. He quickly gathered the letters and documents into a neat stack and stood up. Time was running short before Asante would return. He grabbed his phone and sent a coded message to Kweezi. Found the motherlode. Need backup. Start digging on East Legon property deals and Asante's recent movements. Meet tonight. Kweezi responded immediately. On it. We'll bring a friend who knows legalese. A new ally. Later that night, under the muted streetlights of Accra, Okatachi met Kweezi and Nanayor, a sharp-witted lawyer known for taking on cases others wouldn't touch. Nanayor examined the letters carefully. These are gold. Forgeries, unpaid debts, fake contracts, all laid out in black and white. Your brother could be exposed for fraud. Okatachi nodded, but the problem is, this isn't just a family matter anymore. This involves city officials, banks, and some powerful people. If I go public too fast, I'll be crushed. Queasy said, then we take it slow. We gather more proof. We watch. We wait for the perfect moment. Queasy pulled out a small device from his bag. I installed this in the house last week. Asante's been talking on the phone. I've been recording. Okatachi's heart raced. This was a chance to hear Asante's own voice confessing. He pressed play. Asante's voice crackled through the speaker. Yes, the Afria land deal is settled. The papers are in place. Okatachi's return is just a storm wheel weather. He'll have no proof, and even if he does, the city council is on our side. We move fast, buy off the neighbors, and the whole thing will be ours. Okatachi's fists clenched the suitcase tighter. The betrayal was deeper than he imagined. The man he once trusted as a brother was planning to erase his name completely. Nanayor looked grim. This isn't just theft. It's conspiracy. We need to be careful. Careful, Okatachi echoed. I'll need to confront him, but not yet. First, I need to protect Ma's legacy. The night that changed everything. As the three men plotted their next steps in the quiet street corner, a shadow lurked nearby, a figure listening, watching. Unbeknownst to Okatachi and his allies, someone had been tipped off. The game of loyalty, betrayal, and survival was far from over. Okatachi's heart pounded like a drum in his chest as he stood before the heavy wooden door of the family house once again. But this time, it wasn't a hopeful knock or a tentative request for shelter. This was a summons, a challenge. His breath caught. Memories flooded back, the laughter shared, the promises made, the trust once unshakable. Yet now, everything was tainted by suspicion. Betrayal had woven its dark threads deep into the fabric of his family. The house was silent as he stepped inside, the familiar scent of old wood and lingering perfume filling his senses. Asante sat at the dining table, papers spread before him, eyes cold and calculating. So, Asante said, voice steady but sharp, you finally found your way back. Okatachi met his brother's gaze without flinching. Yes, he said, voice calm but firm. I came back for the house. For Ma's legacy. And for the truth. Asante laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. The truth? You mean those letters from Mother? The ones you think make you the rightful owner of everything. Okatachi placed the stack of letters on the table. They do. And the recordings, Asante. I heard your plans, how you meant to sell off the land, erase me from the family's history. Asante's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I trusted you, Okatachi continued. Sent you money, sent you hope. But you turned it all into a game of greed. Asante finally leaned forward, eyes flashing. You were gone. I had to survive here. The city's changed. It's no longer about family. It's about power. Something you don't understand anymore. Okatachi shook his head. I understand enough to know that betraying family isn't the way. You can still make this right. Asante's expression hardened. It's too late for that. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Suddenly, Asante slammed his fist on the table. You think you're better than me? You think because you lived in America you have all the answers? This city eats people like you alive. Okatachi took a step closer. I'm not here to fight, Asante. I'm here to save what we lost. But I already won, Asante said bitterly. The house is mine. The land is mine. And soon, so will be the rest of what you left behind. Okatachi's eyes burned with determination. Not if I have anything to say about it. Asante stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're naive. The city's full of sharks. And now you're swimming with them. Okatachi's phone buzzed. He glanced down, it was a message from Queasy, stay strong. We're ready. A small, hopeful smile tugged at the corners of Okatachi's mouth. Then let's get to work, he said. Outside, the night wrapped the city in a velvet cloak, alive with distant sounds, a reminder that the fight for loyalty, justice, and family was just beginning. The night after the tense confrontation, Okatachi lay awake on the creaky old mattress in the guest room. The thin walls of the house seemed to whisper secrets, secrets that were waiting to be uncovered, and those that might destroy him if revealed too soon. His mind replayed every word exchanged with Asante, every subtle glance and hidden resentment that had built up over years apart. Despite his exhaustion, sleep eluded him. The moonlight filtered through the cracked window, casting ghostly patterns on the faded wallpaper. He knew that the battle ahead wouldn't be won by force alone. This was a war of minds, wills, and carefully laid plans. Gathering the pieces. Early the next morning, Okatachi met Kwesi and Nanayor at a quiet cafe tucked away in a bustling street of the city. The clamor of vendors and cars outside contrasted sharply with the hushed intensity inside the small room where they gathered. Kwesi laid out a detailed map of the neighborhood, the exact plots of land Asante claimed, the houses, the empty lots. "We've started checking the property records," Kwesi said, pointing to several spots marked in red. "Some titles are clean, but others are suspicious. A few transactions seem fake or missing entirely." Nanayor nodded thoughtfully. "That's where we strike. The forged documents, the bribes, the secret deals, all need to be exposed. We'll need witnesses, proof, and a plan to present everything legally. But most importantly, we need to protect your mother and any other family members who could be threatened." Okatachi clenched his fists. "I can't let Asante hurt Ma. She's the only family I have left." A glimmer of hope. Their plan was simple but dangerous: gather undeniable evidence of Asante's betrayal, rally family and friends who had been wronged, and confront the city officials involved. But gathering evidence meant returning to the places Okatachi once called home, places now shadowed by Asante's influence. Kwesi spoke quietly. "There's an old family friend, Aunt Akua. She's known everything, but she's scared to speak. If we can convince her to come forward, it could change everything." Okatachi nodded. "I'll visit her tonight." Visit to Aunt Akua. That evening, the city streets were alive with the sounds of vendors closing up, children playing, and the distant hum of nightlife beginning. The street leading to Aunt Akua's house was narrow and dimly lit, the kind of place where secrets thrived in the shadows. Aunt Akua was a frail woman in her 70s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through the years of lies. When Okatachi arrived, she welcomed him cautiously. "You've come back," she said softly, "but things are worse than you think. Asante isn't just greedy, he's dangerous." Okatachi sat beside her, steadying his voice. "Tell me everything, Aunt Akua. I need to know." She sighed deeply, then began to reveal stories of late-night meetings, of people threatened into silence, of documents altered under the cover of darkness. She spoke of neighbors forced out, of business owners paid off, and of promises broken. Her words painted a picture of a city gripped by corruption, one that Okatachi had never imagined when he sent money home. The trap is set. Meanwhile, back at the house, Asante was not idle. He sensed the tides turning and had begun gathering his own allies. The political connections he had nurtured were ready to protect him, and his charm masked a ruthless will beneath. Asante's phone buzzed. A whispered voice on the other end said, "They're moving faster than we thought. Watch the boy closely. Don't let him get to Ma." Asante's smile was cold. "They underestimate me. They always do." A city on the edge. As Okatachi walked back from Aunt Akua's that night, the city lights twinkled deceptively beautiful against the dark sky. But beneath the glitter, the city was a web of lies, secrets, and shifting loyalties. He knew that every step forward could bring danger, but also the chance to reclaim his family's honor. His phone buzzed again, another message from Kwesi: "Tomorrow, we start the witness interviews. Be ready." Okatachi looked up at the night sky, determination burning bright in his eyes. The fight for truth, love, and justice was only beginning, and he was ready to face whatever came. The early morning air was thick with humidity as Okatachi stepped out into the city's winding streets. The vibrant noise of vendors setting up stalls and children laughing filled the air, but beneath the surface, a different tension gripped the neighborhood, a quiet fear that only those who lived it understood. Okatachi adjusted his worn jacket and checked his phone. Kwesi's message had come just before dawn, witnesses gathered. Meeting point in 2 hours. He walked briskly toward the old community center where they planned to meet. His heart raced, not just from the anticipation, but because he knew this day could change everything. The meeting of witnesses. Inside the small room, faces old and new gathered around the worn wooden tables. There were shop owners, neighbors, former employees of Asante's businesses, and a few family members who still hoped for justice. They looked nervous, but there was a flicker of hope in their eyes. Kwesi stood at the head of the room, commanding attention with his quiet strength. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "We're here to tell the truth. To expose what's been hidden for too long." One by one, witnesses shared their stories, how they were pressured to sell properties below value, how threats had forced families to leave, how contracts were signed with crooked officials. A woman, Mrs. Ageman, spoke next, her voice trembling. "I ran the bakery on 12th Street. Asante's men came one day, told me to close or face consequences. I refused, and they broke the windows. I had no choice but to leave." Murmurs rippled through the room. Okatachi looked at each person, feeling their pain as if it were his own. A dangerous ally. After the meeting, Nanio pulled Okatachi aside. "We have one problem. One of Asante's trusted men, Kojo, might be willing to help us. But he's dangerous. If he's a double agent, we could lose everything." Okatachi nodded slowly. "We have no choice. If we want to win, we need someone on the inside." That evening, Okatachi arranged to meet Kojo at a quiet bar on the outskirts of the city. The dim light barely revealed Kojo's sharp features, but his eyes held a wary intelligence. "You think you can trust me?" Kojo asked, voice low. "I don't," Okatachi said honestly. "But I know you're tired of living in the shadows." Kojo smiled bitterly. "Maybe. But betraying Asante comes with a price." The first strike. Days passed, and the group worked tirelessly. They collected documents, recorded testimonies, and pieced together the puzzle of deception. Meanwhile, Asante grew increasingly paranoid, his once confident demeanor cracking under the pressure. One afternoon, as Okatachi returned to the family house, he noticed strangers lurking nearby, men who didn't belong. His instinct screamed danger. That night, as he lay in bed, there was a sudden crash from the living room. He jumped up, heart pounding, and found nothing but a broken vase and a hastily scrawled note, "Stay out of this, or else." A mother's courage. Despite the threats, Okatachi's resolve only strengthened. He visited Ma the next morning, finding her in the garden, her hands deep in the earth. "Ma," he said gently, "I need you to be strong. We're fighting for our family." She looked up, eyes clear and fierce. "I have always been strong, my son. They may take our land, but they will never take our spirit." Her words ignited a fire within Okatachi. This was more than a fight for property, it was a fight for identity, for legacy. The city watches. News of the dispute began to spread through the city. Whispers in markets, conversations in crowded buses, and secretive glances in office buildings. The story of the deported son returning to reclaim his family's honor became a symbol of resistance for many. But with attention came danger. Okatachi knew the coming days would test him like never before. As night fell, Okatachi stood on the rooftop of the family house, gazing at the city's endless lights. Somewhere in the shadows, his brother Asante was watching too, waiting, planning. The battle lines had been drawn. The first light of dawn had barely kissed the rooftops when Okatachi's phone buzzed sharply against the wooden table. He stared at the screen, an unknown number flashing ominously. His heart tightened with a mixture of dread and determination. He hesitated, then answered. "Okatachi Afria," a cold voice hissed. "You're meddling in things you don't understand. Stop, or you'll regret it." The line went dead. Okatachi's fists clenched. This was no empty threat. The game had become deadly. A family divided. Back inside the house, tension was thicker than ever. Ma sat quietly by the window, her weathered hands folded in her lap. The woman who once filled their home with warmth now wore a stoic expression, one forged by years of hardship and recent betrayals. Asante entered the room with a calculated smile, masking the turmoil underneath. "Brother," he said smoothly, "you have caused quite a stir since your return." Okatachi met his gaze steadily. "I came back to reclaim what is mine, and to protect our mother." Asante's smile faded slightly. "You speak as if you own the house and the land. But remember, I have kept the family afloat while you were away. Who do you think the people here trust?" Their eyes locked, the silent battle between them crackling in the air. The secret meeting. That evening, Kwesi and Nanayo arranged a discreet gathering at a safe house. The air was thick with urgency and whispered conversations. Kojo arrived last, his face shadowed under a cap. "I have something," he said quietly, producing a bundle of papers. They were documents, contracts, letters, and financial statements showing forged signatures and illegal transfers tied directly to Asante's dealings. "This is the proof we need," Nanayo whispered. "But it's dangerous. If Asante finds out we have this, he'll move to silence us all." Okatachi nodded gravely. "Then we must move fast." A whisper of betrayal. Back at the family home, Asante paced nervously. He had learned that someone inside his circle was leaking information. His trusted men were no longer so trustworthy. He picked up the phone. "Find out who is helping Okatachi. And make sure they regret it." A knock at the door startled him. A young woman stood there, her eyes wide with fear. "Please," she begged, "I have information. I want to help." Asante's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure you want to cross me?" She swallowed hard. "I want justice." The city turns. Word of the Afria family dispute began to spread through the city's alleys and markets. Some sympathized with Okatachi's plight, others feared Asante's power. The city seemed poised on a knife's edge. Okatachi moved through the streets, feeling the weight of expectation. He was no longer just a man fighting for his family, he had become a symbol of resistance against corruption and betrayal. A glimpse of the past. That night, unable to sleep, Okatachi wandered into the old neighborhood park. The memories hit him, the laughter of childhood, the warmth of family picnics, the promises made under the old mango tree. But those memories were tinged with pain, the sacrifices he made, the distance that grew between brothers, and the cold reality of betrayal. He whispered into the darkness, "I will not lose this fight. Not now. Not ever." The storm approaches. As the chapter closed, the city braced for a storm of secrets, lies, and confrontations. Okatachi's return had awakened more than just old wounds, it had stirred a battle that would shake the foundations of family, loyalty, and justice. The sun dipped behind the tall buildings of the city, casting long shadows over the streets where Okatachi walked with a heavy heart. Every corner seemed to whisper stories of his childhood, the promises he had made, and the betrayals that now threatened to tear everything apart. Tonight was not just another evening. It was the night he would confront the ghosts of his past and uncover secrets buried deeper than he ever imagined. An unexpected visitor. As Okatachi reached the small cafe where he often met Kwesi and Nanayo, he noticed a figure waiting in the dim light. It was Amma, a childhood friend and once trusted confidant of Asante. Her eyes darted nervously as he approached. "Okatachi," she whispered urgently, "I have to tell you something. It's about Asante and the house." Okatachi's pulse quickened. "Go on." Amma took a deep breath. "Asante has been hiding something that could change everything. He's been selling off parts of the property, using the money for his own gain. But it gets worse." She paused, glancing over her shoulder. "He's involved with people who are not just after money, they're dangerous. They've threatened anyone who gets in their way." Okatachi's mind raced. This was bigger than a family feud. It was a battle against a hidden enemy within his own bloodline. The weight of truth. That night, back at the family house, Okatachi sat with Ma. The old woman's eyes, though tired, shone with fierce pride. "Ma," he said softly, "Asante's betrayal runs deeper than I thought. I don't know who to trust anymore." Ma reached out, gripping his hand. "My son, loyalty is tested in fire. Sometimes, those we love the most hurt us the deepest. But remember, strength comes from within, and the truth always finds a way. Her words echoed in his heart, steadying his resolve. A city's pulse. Outside, the city hummed with life, a mix of hope, fear, and anticipation. Vendors shouted their wares, taxis honked in a chaotic symphony, and distant music floated through open windows. Okatachi moved through the crowds, feeling both lost and determined. He was a man stripped of wealth, yet richer in purpose. He had to gather allies, expose the truth, and reclaim his family's honor before the shadows swallowed everything. A dangerous plan. Later that evening, in a secret room lit by flickering candles, Okatachi, Kwezi, Nanayor, and Amma laid out a plan. "We'll need evidence, documents, recordings, witnesses," Kwezi said firmly. "And we'll have to move quickly before Ashanti's people catch on." Amma nodded. "I can get close enough to gather information. But it's risky." Okatachi looked at each of them, feeling the weight of their trust. "We have no choice. We fight not just for property, but for justice." The breaking point. As the meeting ended, Okatachi felt a chill crawl down his spine. Outside the window, he saw two figures watching from the shadows. His eyes narrowed. The battle was no longer just about family. It was a fight for survival. As the city lights flickered and the night deepened, Okatachi Afria steeled himself for the coming storm, one that would test every bond, every secret, and every truth he held dear. The dawn broke unevenly over the city's skyline, painting the horizon with muted shades of orange and grey. Okatachi woke early, the weight of the previous night's revelations pressing down on him like a storm cloud. His mind raced with every word Amma had whispered, every secret uncovered, and every shadow lurking within his family's home. The truth was no longer a distant possibility. It was a dangerous reality. Silent war. Okatachi moved quietly through the house, careful not to disturb Ma, who was still asleep. He paused at the window overlooking the street below. Life was beginning anew for the city, but his world felt as fractured as ever. His phone vibrated softly in his pocket. It was a message from Amma. "Tonight. Be ready." He knew this was the moment to act. Gathering evidence. Later that evening, Okatachi met Amma in a cramped back room of an old warehouse on the edge of the city. The smell of dust and rust filled the air, but the room was alive with urgency. Amma pulled out a small flash drive. "This has everything: emails, bank transfers, recordings of Ashanti talking to his contacts. It's all here." Okatachi's fingers trembled as he took the drive. This could bring him down. Amma's eyes were fierce. It could also put us all in danger. They shared a look, one born of trust forged in fire. The hidden enemy. Back at the house, Ashanti was no fool. He had sensed the tide turning, the walls closing in. His men were restless, and whispers of betrayal haunted every corner. He sat in his office, eyes sharp as he studied the phone records and messages intercepted by his spies. Someone was feeding Okatachi information, but the traitor remained a ghost. "Find them," Ashanti growled to his lieutenant. "No one betrays the Afria name and lives to tell the tale." A mother's warning. That night, Ma pulled Okatachi aside. Her face was lined with worry but her voice steady. "My son," she said, "you walk a dangerous path. But remember, blood is thicker than water. Even when it's poisoned, it can heal." Okatachi nodded, fighting back tears. Her faith was his anchor in the storm. The city holds its breath. News of the family feud was no longer whispered in dark alleys, it was becoming the talk of the city. Gossip mingled with speculation, and alliances shifted like sand. Okatachi knew the next steps were critical. He needed to expose Ashanti before the lies swallowed them all. But Ashanti was cunning, and the city was watching. A plan in motion. Under the cloak of night, Okatachi, Kwezi, Nanayor, and Amma prepared to confront Ashanti with the evidence. They arranged a meeting in a public cafe, hoping the presence of witnesses would keep things from spiraling out of control. Okatachi's heart pounded as he approached the table, the flash drive burning in his pocket, a tiny beacon of truth amidst a sea of deception. The meeting. Ashanti arrived with his usual arrogance, a smug smile playing on his lips. He greeted Okatachi coldly. "Back to claim what's mine, I see," he sneered. Okatachi stood tall. It's not yours, Asante. Not if it's built on lies and greed. He slid the flash drive across the table. Asante's smile faltered as he realized the game had changed. As the city's night deepened, so did the battle for truth, justice, and family loyalty. Neither side would back down, and the web of lies was only beginning to unravel. The air in the cafe was thick with tension, every second stretched by the heavy silence between the two brothers. Okatachi's fingers tightened around the small flash drive as he met Asante's steely gaze. Around them, the city pulsed with life, but here, in this small bubble of confrontation, time seemed to slow. Asante's eyes flicked to the flash drive and then back to Okatachi. You think this little device will bring me down? His voice was low, dangerous. I've built more than you can imagine. Your money was just a stepping stone. Okatachi's jaw clenched. But you stole from family. You hid the truth while pretending to care for Ma, for all of us. The house, the money, you betrayed every promise. Asante scoffed, leaning back in his chair. Promises are for fools. I did what I had to do. Survival isn't pretty. The evidence speaks. Okatachi signaled to Amma and Nanayor, who took out a small portable device and connected the flash drive to the cafe's TV screen. Emails, bank transfers, voice recordings, proof of Asante's secret deals, illegal sales of property, and corrupt connections with unsavory city figures flooded the screen. Gasps and murmurs rose from the few customers nearby, and a crowd began to gather, sensing the explosive drama unfolding. Asante's face twisted from confident to furious. You'll regret this, he hissed, his voice barely audible over the rising noise. Public humiliation. Queasy, standing beside Okatachi, whispered, This is your moment. Take it. Okatachi nodded, voice steady despite the storm inside. Asante, you weren't just greedy, you put us all at risk. Your actions endangered Ma's comfort, the family's name, and our future. The crowd watched, captivated by the unraveling truth of a once respected family now torn by betrayal. The fallout. After the confrontation, news spread like wildfire through the city streets and social media feeds. Friends and foes alike took sides, some shocked, some vindicated, others ready to exploit the chaos. Okatachi's phone buzzed non-stop. Messages of support came from old friends, neighbors, even distant relatives who had long suspected Asante's greed. But threats came too, dark warnings cloaked in polite words. A brother's defiance. Back at the family home, Asante refused to surrender. His pride was a fortress, his bitterness a weapon. He met with his allies in a secret room deep inside the city's underbelly. Okatachi thinks he can take everything. But I will fight. I have power here, and I won't lose. Okatachi's resolve. Meanwhile, Okatachi sat with Ma, holding her frail hands. Ma, this fight is far from over. She smiled weakly. My son, sometimes you must lose yourself to find what truly matters. Her words stirred something deep within him, a fierce determination to reclaim not just the house, but the family's honor and unity. A city waiting. Outside, the city carried on unaware of the quiet war waging beneath its streets, the war of love, loyalty, and the price of betrayal. As Okatachi gazed out the window, he knew the road ahead was dark and uncertain. But one thing was clear, he would fight to the very end. The city's humid night wrapped around Okatachi like a thick veil as he stepped out onto the dimly lit street. His mind was a whirlwind, caught between hope and fear. The confrontation with Asante had shaken the family to its core, but it was far from over. Tonight, the real fight would begin. Ghosts at every corner. Okatachi's footsteps echoed softly against the cracked pavement as he made his way toward a small, weathered church near the heart of the city. It was a place he hadn't visited since childhood, a place where memories both sweet and painful lingered in every corner. Inside, the flicker of candlelight revealed the faces of the congregation. Amma was already there, waiting for him with a grave expression. Her eyes reflected the weight of the secret she was about to reveal. A secret unearthed. Okatachi, Amma began quietly, there's something you need to know about Asante. Something even more dangerous than the lies we've uncovered. He leaned forward, heart pounding. What is it? Amma hesitated, then pulled out a folded envelope from her bag. This was sent to me anonymously. It contains documents linking Asante to a powerful crime syndicate operating in the city. They've been using the family's assets to launder money. Okatachi's breath caught. This was bigger than he imagined. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Amma looked away, pain flickering in her eyes. I was afraid. But now, we have to act fast. The weight of betrayal. Outside, the city's neon lights flickered like distant stars, indifferent to the turmoil in one family's fate. Okatachi's mind raced back to all the moments of trust and love he had placed in Asante. Had it all been a lie? Had his brother's greed blinded him to the family's destruction? An unexpected ally. As they left the church, a shadowy figure stepped from the alley, a tall man in a worn suit, eyes sharp as a hawk. Okatachi Afria, he said calmly, I've been watching your family's troubles. I can help you, but it won't be easy. Okatachi studied him warily. Who are you? The man extended a hand. Call me Kofi. I used to work with Asante. I know his secrets. And I want out. A dangerous proposition. In the quiet of a nearby cafe, Kofi laid out a plan, a risky, dangerous scheme to gather the final evidence needed to bring down Asante and the syndicate for good. You'll need to play the part of the desperate exile, Kofi explained. Asante trusts you less now. We can use that. Get close enough, and we'll expose everything. Okatachi nodded slowly. The city was a chessboard, and he was about to make his next move. Family fractures deepen. Meanwhile, in the family home, Ma sensed the rising storm. Alone in her room, she whispered prayers for her sons, prayers for peace, forgiveness, and healing. But the walls held secrets too heavy for her to bear alone. The city sleeps, but danger awakes. As the night deepened, Okatachi walked back into the city's shadows, ready to play a dangerous game. His family, his legacy, and perhaps his very life depended on it. Okatachi's breath came steady as he stepped back into the house, the place that should have been his sanctuary but now felt like a battlefield. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow cast by the flickering lights reminded him of the betrayal buried deep within these walls. He knew he had to act carefully. One wrong move, and everything he had fought for, the family, the truth, his own safety, could be lost. Masking the pain. To Asante and the rest of the family, Okatachi wore the mask of a broken man, deported, penniless, vulnerable. But beneath that facade, his mind raced, piecing together the plan Kofi had laid out. He would play the desperate exile, the prodigal brother brought low, begging for scraps. But behind closed doors, he was gathering allies, gathering evidence, preparing to strike. The House of Secrets. Late one night, Okatachi slipped quietly into the study Asante rarely used. Dust hung thick in the air, mixing with the scent of old leather and forgotten promises. He rifled through drawers, searching for anything that could incriminate Asante further. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard, his fingers brushed something cold, a small, unmarked USB drive. His heart quickened. This could be the missing piece. Betrayal unmasked. As Okatachi connected the drive to his laptop, the screen lit up with files, bank statements, encrypted messages, pictures of secret meetings. The depth of Asante's deceit was staggering. But then one folder caught his eye, a series of photos of Ma, looking frail, alone, and ignored. Documents showed money diverted from her care to Asante's own lavish lifestyle. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal. A fractured family. The next morning, Okatachi confronted Asante, voice cold and steady. Why did you let Ma suffer while you lived in luxury? He demanded. Asante's face twisted with anger and shame. You don't understand. I had to keep the family afloat. You left us. I did what I had to. Okatachi shook his head. No. You chose yourself over family. Allies and enemies. Outside, the city buzzed with life, unaware of the fragile threads holding the Afria family together. Okatachi met with Amma and Kofi, sharing the new evidence and planning their next move. We need to expose him publicly, Amma said, determination shining in her eyes. Kofi nodded. But we must be careful. Asante's not alone. His syndicate has eyes everywhere. The first strike. As night fell, Okatachi prepared for his first public move, a carefully orchestrated reveal at the city's biggest social event, where Asante's allies and rivals would gather. He knew the risks. But if he could turn the city against Asante, he could reclaim not just his home, but the family's honor. A city on edge. The streets hummed with anticipation, whispers spreading like wildfire. The story of betrayal, greed, and a brother's fight for justice gripped the city's heart. Okatachi stood on the edge of a precipice. One step forward, and everything could change. The grand ballroom shimmered under glittering chandeliers, filled with the city's most powerful and influential figures. The hum of polite conversation, clinking glasses, and soft music masked the undercurrents of ambition, rivalry, and secrets. Tonight was more than a social gathering, it was a battlefield in disguise. Okatachi stood near the entrance, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the disheveled image he had shown his family at home. This was his moment to reclaim his dignity, to show the world what had been hidden behind Asante's polished facade. Eyes of the city. Asante moved through the crowd with practiced ease, surrounded by his loyalists, his smile sharp and controlled. He caught sight of Okatachi and narrowed his eyes, a silent warning. This was a game of chess, and each move counted. Amma and Kofi flanked Okatachi, their faces taut with tension. The files on the USB drive were ready to be shared, undeniable proof of Asante's crimes. But exposing such a powerful man here, in front of his allies, could be dangerous. The first whisper. Okatachi waited for the right moment. When the host took the stage to toast the city's progress, Okatachi slipped away to a discreet corner and activated his phone. A carefully crafted message, attached with the incriminating files, was sent to the city's top investigative journalist, a woman known for her courage and integrity. The journalist scanned the documents, her eyes widening in shock. Within minutes, she began live tweeting revelations that sent ripples through the crowd. The reveal. Gasps and murmurs spread like wildfire. Screens around the ballroom lit up with headlines accusing Asante of money laundering, embezzlement, and neglect of his own mother. Asante's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of panic. His allies shifted uncomfortably. Whispers turned into accusations. The confrontation. Okatachi stepped forward, voice steady but resolute. This family, our city, deserves the truth, he declared. I came back not just for myself, but for Ma, for the forgotten sacrifices, and for the future of all of us. The room fell silent, eyes locked on the brothers. Asante's face was a mask of fury and betrayal. You think you can ruin me with lies? Asante spat back. Okatachi met his gaze. The truth is no lie. Cracks in the armor. Asante's supporters began to question their loyalty. Some whispered about distancing themselves, others pulled out their phones, calling urgent meetings. Amma moved beside Okatachi, whispering, "This is only the beginning. He won't go down without a fight." The aftermath. The night ended in chaos. The city's elite scattered like startled birds, some in shock, others plotting their next moves. The balance of power had shifted, but the battle was far from over. Outside, the streets buzzed with excitement and fear. Okatachi walked into the cool night air, heart pounding. He had struck the first blow, but Asante's shadow loomed large, dark, and threatening. A city holds its breath. The city held its breath, waiting for the next chapter in this story of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. For Okatachi, the journey was only beginning. The dawn broke over the city like a fragile promise, but for Okatachi, there was no peace. The night's revelations had shaken the city's elite, but the tremors of power and betrayal ran deep beneath the surface. His phone buzzed relentlessly, messages from friends, strangers, journalists, and most worryingly, threats from unknown numbers warning him to stop. Asante's influence was vast, and his reach even deeper. A family fractured. At home, Ma's frail figure sat quietly by the window, the weight of years and sorrow visible in her eyes. Amma had returned early from the event, her face pale but determined. "We can't trust anyone, not yet," Amma whispered. Asante's not just angry, he's dangerous. Okatachi nodded, guilt gnawing at him. Had his return, his revelations, put their mother in more danger? The enemy moves. Asante was already rallying his forces. Late into the night, secret meetings were held in shadowed corners of the city, businessmen, politicians, and street enforcers plotting a response to Okatachi's uprising. Rumors began to circulate, questioning Okatachi's motives, painting him as a disgruntled exile desperate for attention. But the documents were real, and the journalists' coverage was relentless. Unexpected allies. In the midst of the storm, an unexpected ally emerged, Kwame, a childhood friend of Okatachi who had risen to a powerful position within the city's law enforcement. Kwame arranged a secret meeting in a quiet cafe. "I've seen the evidence," he said cautiously. "If you want to bring Asante down, you'll need more than just papers. You'll need protection and proof that can hold up in court." Okatachi's resolve hardened. This was more than a family feud. It was a fight for justice, for survival. The price of truth. Days passed in a blur of planning and paranoia. Okatachi found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, the city streets feeling more hostile by the hour. One night, as he returned home, a shadow detached itself from an alley and blocked his path. "You should have stayed in America, brother," a cold voice hissed. "This is your last warning." Okatachi's heart pounded, but he stood firm. "I'm not afraid." The figure vanished into the night, leaving a chilling silence. A city divided. The news spread fast. Okatachi's courage inspired some, while others feared the upheaval. Neighborhoods buzzed with conversations about loyalty, greed, and the cost of family secrets. At the city council, heated debates erupted about the allegations against Asante. But behind closed doors, deals were being struck to protect powerful interests. A plan unfolds. Okatachi gathered Amma, Kofi, and Kwame late one evening, laying out a new plan, one that would take them beyond the city's glittering facades into the heart of corruption and danger. "We're not just fighting for the past," Okatachi said, eyes blazing. "We're fighting for the city's future, and for everyone who's been silenced." The calm before the storm. As the city prepared for what felt like an inevitable clash, Okatachi found a moment to sit with Ma. Her hands trembled as she reached out to him. "Be careful, my son," she whispered. "This road is dark, but your heart is strong." Okatachi nodded, feeling the weight of generations on his shoulders. The storm was coming, and there was no turning back. The city was restless, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken fears. Every step Okatachi took felt heavier than the last, as if the shadows of the past were closing in to silence him forever. He gathered his small circle in the dim light of a back room. Amma, Kofi, and Kwame, the only ones he could trust fully now. A dangerous game. Okatachi laid out the next phase, a public hearing that would force Asante to answer for his actions, supported by undeniable evidence and backed by Kwame's growing network within law enforcement. "This is our chance," Okatachi said quietly but firmly. "If we succeed, it's justice for Ma and for everyone who suffered. But if we fail..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all knew what failure meant. The unexpected betrayal. Just as plans solidified, a message came from an unthinkable source, their own cousin, Nana, who had long been silent in the family disputes. "I know what you're doing," the text read. "Be careful who you trust. Some ties are deeper than blood." Okatachi's stomach twisted. Was Nana warning them or warning Asante? Secrets unearthed. Determined to find out, Okatachi confronted Nana at a secluded cafe. The meeting was tense. Nana's eyes flickered with a mixture of guilt and fear. "I didn't want to be part of this," Nana confessed. "But Asante has been threatening to expose things about you, things that could destroy everything." Okatachi's mind raced. What secrets did he have left? And how much did Asante really know? The city watches. Meanwhile, the city's media frenzy intensified. The public hearing was set for the following week, and everyone wanted a front-row seat. The pressure on Asante mounted. He appeared composed on the surface, but whispers of desperation trailed him through every corridor. A family divided. Back at home, Ma's health worsened. The stress of the unfolding events weighed heavily on her, and Okatachi stayed by her side as often as he could. Amma noticed the cracks forming between siblings and cousins, alliances shifting like sand. "We're losing more than just a battle," she said quietly. "We're losing each other." The night before, on the eve of the hearing, Okatachi stood alone on the balcony of the house he once built with his own hands from thousands of miles away. The city lights stretched out before him, a vast maze of hope and heartbreak. He whispered a vow to himself, "No matter what happens tomorrow, I will fight for what is right. For Ma. For my family. For this city." A new dawn approaches. As the first rays of sunlight crept over the skyline, the city braced for the storm of truth. Okatachi felt the weight of history pressing down, but inside him burned a fire that could not be extinguished. The story was far from over, the final chapters still unwritten, the outcome uncertain. The city buzzed with energy like never before. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters, onlookers, and supporters from all sides. The atmosphere crackled, anticipation mixed with fear, hope tangled with doubt. Okatachi arrived early, his heart pounding not just with nerves but with determination. This was more than a hearing. This was the moment he'd sacrificed everything for. The gathering storm. Amma and Kofi flanked him as they entered the courtroom. Kwame, working behind the scenes, had ensured the security was tight, knowing Ashanti's network wouldn't take this challenge lightly. Inside, the gallery was filled with familiar faces, neighbors, business owners, even some of Ashanti's usual allies. The air was thick with tension, many whispered that this hearing could change the city forever. Ashanti's composure cracks. Ashanti sat confidently at the defendant's table, his sharp suit and polished demeanor belying the cracks beneath. When Okatachi's name was called, a hush fell over the room. The first witness was Ma, their mother, who bravely recounted the years of financial support she had received and the sudden betrayal she felt as the house they built together slipped away. Her voice trembled, but her eyes held a fierce strength. "I trusted my sons, but loyalty is a fragile thing. The evidence speaks." Okatachi's lawyer presented documents, bank statements, contracts, undeniable proof that Ashanti had been siphoning funds meant for the house, diverting money for personal luxuries, even selling family assets without consent. Gasps echoed around the room. Whispers turned to murmurs of outrage. The unexpected twist. Then, a surprise witness appeared, Nana, the cousin who had sent the warning message. She took the stand and revealed how Ashanti had threatened to destroy Okatachi's reputation abroad to keep him silent. Her testimony cracked the carefully constructed facade Ashanti had maintained. Ashanti's defense and desperation. Cornered, Ashanti's composure faltered. He lashed out, accusing Okatachi of scheming to take everything by force. "You think you're the only one who sacrificed? I kept this family afloat when you were chasing dreams overseas." His voice rose, and the courtroom was on edge. The fight was no longer just about money, it was about pride, power, and deep-rooted resentment. A city divided. Outside, the city reacted in real time. Social media exploded with debates and opinions. Some praised Okatachi's courage, others questioned the family's very foundations. Neighbors who once admired Ashanti now whispered doubts. Old friendships frayed, new alliances formed in the shifting sands of power. Okatachi's resolve. Despite the emotional rollercoaster, Okatachi stayed calm. In his closing statement, he looked directly at Ashanti. "Brother, this isn't about destroying you. It's about reclaiming what was stolen, not just from me, but from Ma, from our family, and from everyone who trusted us." He paused, letting the words hang in the heavy air. Loyalty can be broken, but it can also be rebuilt if we choose truth over greed. The waiting game. The hearing was adjourned for deliberation. Okatachi stepped outside, breathing in the chaotic energy of the city. The future was uncertain. The fight was far from over. But for the first time in years, hope glimmered in the heart of the city.